Julie Tagualo. Okay, and I acknowledge all your single achievements when you are in the Department of Social Welfare and Development. And more than ever, I really empathize and sympathize with the conditions that you went through. And I admire you enormously for what you went through and how you stood. Of course, former chairperson Maria Gracia Pulitan, my dear friend of the Commission on Audit, who, like any woman with a strong mind and the brains to go with it, launched an unprecedented investigation that has led to what we call as equivalent to the investigations of the Senate when the Senate was in its glory. And of course, we have Sister Mary Frances Dizon, OSB President of the St. Scholastical College, Sister Mary John Mananzan, Sister Mary, Vice President for External Affairs, St. Scholastical College and Executive Director for the Institute of Women's Studies, Scholasticans and the Benedictine community, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. It is my pleasure to join you in this forum marking two auspicious occasions, the 30th or Pearl anniversary of the establishment of the Institute of Women's Studies as an affiliate of St. Scholastica's College, and tomorrow's celebration, the celebration of International Women's Day. Both occasions demonstrate to all of us that aspiration and achievement intersect. Many occasions, these intersections are occasioned by the great efforts of women. For example, the Institute of Women's Studies envisions, just imagine, a just and free society where patriarchal values have been transcended and opposite structures overcome. Women and men have equal rights and status. People participate and determine their own development. Everyone respects and protects the environment, and opportunities for growth are accessible to all. In which context, the people's aspiration for the full flowering of the human spirit and creativity can be actualized. Can you just imagine that? Very, very ambitious goals of scholasticans. March 8, or Women's Day, on the other hand, celebrates the achievements of women without regard to divisions, whether national, ethnic, linguistic, cultural, economic, or political. It also serves as a rallying point to build support for women's rights and participation in the political and economic arena. So, in an audience composed, would I say 90% of women, both occasions underscore our role in society and why we must never lose faith in our capacities as human beings. And what strikes me as the common denominator of the two occasions is how both today's and tomorrow's celebrations call us to work against the exclusion of women and build on what binds rather than what divides us. Unfortunately, this appears to be wanting in the present climate. The current state of the nation is one where perceived enemies of the dominant order are considered fair game for harassment, intimidation, and persecution, where shortcuts are preferred over adherence to constitutional guarantees of human rights, including the denial of due process, where fake news and propaganda abound to deceive and manipulate rather than enlighten and educate, and where coarseness, including the denigration of women rather than civility, mark the language of the podium. Do you agree with me, Scholasticans? Okay. Is it a wholehearted agreement? What can then be done? First, let us be thoroughly convinced that we can do something to change the situation as citizens of this country. We must not be passive spectators to what is happening, thinking that it is but a game of thrones among political forces with little connection to the lives of majority of the Filipinos. To the contrary, every erosion of the Bill of Rights hits the poor and the unknowing hardest. It is they who will be victimized the most. And to give you the structural basis and the philosophical basis for these adherence to high ideals, allow me to quote the preamble of the Constitution to emphasize where the country must head towards. And allow me to quote, "We, the sovereign Filipino people, imploring the aid of Almighty God. By this, we recognize that we need the help of God in order to bring our country forward, a core belief of Scholasticans." Am I right? "In order to build a just and humane society," I quote again. So if you think about it, the nation's goal is put forward in the Constitution as the building of a just and humane society. Just and humane society. That is not drawn from thin air, my friends. It is what the Constitution requires of us as a nation. So that anything that diminishes society's humanity and justice and justness is anti-Constitution and anti-Filipino. And to what order? And to establish, I will again start quoting, a government that shall embody our ideals and aspirations. In other words, government has the positive duty to embody the highest level of nobility, good, wisdom, righteousness in the Filipino. And this qualitative standard for governance is the norm. Nothing else will do. Allow me again to quote from the Constitution. That shall embody and promote the common good, conserve and develop our patrimony, and secure to ourselves and our posterity the blessings of independence and democracy, which means inclusiveness, not exclusion of critics, democracy, not authoritarianism. And allow me again to quote, under the rule of law, and the regime of truth, katotohanan is enshrined as a constitutional value. It is not a tool. It is not to be dispensed with as a matter of expediency. It is not to be twisted, but it is an independent value that must be pursued under the constitutional design. Justice or katarungan, and you are witnesses to the injustices that are happening around us. Freedom, kalayaan in all its flowering, freedom of thought, freedom of conscience. freedom of expression. Love, pagmamahal, not hatred, not divisiveness. Equality, pagkapantay-pantay ng lahat, a nod to gender equality. And peace, not strife. Kapayapaan. And I quote again, we thus do ordain and promulgate this Constitution. After starting with those very clear goals of us as a nation, we then go to the question of how these goals can be operationalized. And allow me to just speak from my small corner of the world. And as head of the judiciary, safeguarding the rule of law and ensuring transparency and accountability is considered within our province. It is within our province, but not exclusively ours. And I will describe to you how the Constitution designs how we are to operationalize transparency and accountability. I do this describing the Constitution's operations framework within a certain part of the Constitution out of respect and as a tribute to my co-laborer in the vineyard of accountability, Chairperson Grace Pulido-Tan. Now, the judiciary, and this is an oft-neglected part when the Constitution is taught in law schools, and especially also in public fora such as the media. We have to note that the judiciary is part of a group of fiscally autonomous agencies of government. And these agencies form themselves into the constitutional fiscal autonomy group. And these constitute the judiciary, headed by the Supreme Court, in turn headed by the Chief Justice, the Commission, the Civil Service Commission, its chairperson and commissioners, the Commission on Elections, its chairperson and commissioners, the Commission on Audit, formerly headed by Grace Tan and its commissioners, the Office of the Ombudsman, and the Commission on Human Rights. I take pains to show you that actually the Constitution, if you had just been paying serious attention to it, works, would have worked in the past and can still work in the future. The CFAG comprises the institutions that are ordained to exact transparency and accountability from government officials. Thus, the CSC in the manner of government appointments, the COMELEC in the matter of elections, the COA in the matter of government expenditures, the Ombudsman in the matter of graft and corruption, and the CHR in the matter of promotion of human rights. The judiciary, for its part, under Article 8, Section 1 of the Constitution, exercises the judicial power, which includes the duty of the courts of justice to settle actual controversies involving rights which are legally demandable and enforceable, and to determine whether or not there has been a grave abuse of discretion amounting to lack or excess of jurisdiction on the part of any branch or instrumentality of the government. If the CFAG agencies are fully functional, we have actually the blueprint for a major part of a working democracy. The Constitution, in a sense, is quite substantial in the matter of transparency and accountability in this area. And actually, we do not have to reinvent the wheel, at least in this area. As I have previously said, what should occupy much of our people's time is not politics, but how we can build our nation brick by brick by ensuring that, as designed, the important watchdogs and checks and balances that are designed to work indeed work. It is here where the CFAG is supposed to be the public champions of accountability. The CFAG heads, their co-justices or co-commissioners, and the individual employees of their institutions must move towards the constitutional design of exacting accountability even from the political and executive sectors of government. The CFAG is intended to be a very strong, dynamic group, peopled by individuals completely devoted to ensure that constitutionalism and the rule of law are upheld in every facet of public life. It is never intended to be a group of silent commissions or agencies that will do political bidding. The CFAG agencies are constitutionally designed to stay above the fray and look at the future on a long-term structured basis. Thus, I have been calling on our people to support them in their efforts to be independent and fiscally autonomous. The time will come when our people will realize that impromptu, extemporized, unprepared, unthought out plans of action that run contrary to the structured way the Constitution designed accountability harms our nation's long-term future. Ilalagay ko po sa ating wika nating mga nakakaintindi ng katotohanan sa kalye, sa pang-araw-araw. Hindi po maaring padagos-dagos ang galaw. Hindi po pwedeng ang mga aksyon ay panay-bira lamang. Pagkat ang konstitusyon ay nagsasabi sa atin na palakasin ang mga institusyon ng demokrasya, ang mga institusyon ng transparency at accountability, huwag pahinain ito. May struktura at pamamaraan kung paano ipapamalakad ang transparency at accountability. Gawin ito ng tama. Eventually, as our people get exposed to understanding the Constitution, and it is here, my dear young scholasticans, where I ask you to be co-builders of our nation in explaining to them the beautiful structure that the Constitution has designed to exact accountability and transparency. It is our common hope that they will internalize the painstaking steps that must be taken to truly build a nation. Painstaking. Beyond the CFAG agencies, every public servant, from the highest to the lowest, must internalize the concepts of stewardship and public servanthood. And in turn, you young people must demand genuine public service in the concept of stewardship and servanthood. For us to build a genuinely democratic and prosperous nation, all public institutions must be populated with people of integrity, competence, skills, and the management know-how to make the institutions run well. My second proposition to you is that we must collectively bring our voices to say that only the best people, only our best efforts, using the best means and methods, must be employed in the service of our people. We cannot content ourselves with second-rate, half-effort, and less than the best and most responsive methods. We cannot be content with anything less than the best because the future of our nation is at stake. Thus, I cannot end my talk without giving tribute to a woman who not only embodies the best of, and in the Filipino and Filipina, without mentioning a woman whose life was practically dedicated to the defense of the rule of law, justice, and human rights, and who is a heroine in my eyes. She also embodies to the utmost the can-do spirit in reference to my first proposition that all of us must be actively involved in nation building. She has been called a woman exemplar for all seasons, who graduated valedictorian from her high school class of 1931 here at St. Scholastica. She is no other than the late Supreme Court Associate Justice Cecilia Muñoz Palma. Who, by her sheer hard work and excellence of qualities, broke many glass ceilings for women as the country's first woman fiscal, first woman judge of the Court of First Instance, and first woman justice of the Supreme Court. And yet, this is the most significant aspect of her public life. In some of the darkest days of our nation's history, similar to the situation that I described a few days ago, when hope seems at its dimmest, she was at her bravest. And I call upon all of you to be at your bravest when hope seems at its dimmest. Her light shone for all of us. It shone the brightest as she courageously dissented in several martial law cases that to her undermined the rule of law. It was at peril to her own safety that she did it. She did not earn the approval of her peers. Instead, she had to trek the lonely road by voicing her dissent against authoritarianism. Even after her retirement from the court, she continued to speak up fearlessly against the excesses of the martial law regime. And I would run out of time and pages of paper just to retell you her most significant written work and passages from them. But allow me to just encapsulate her thoughts in a few simple phrases. And this was delivered nearly 40 years ago. And she made this call. When she delivered a homily entitled, "What Are Our Options Today?" And it was delivered during the liturgical celebration in commemoration of the 31st anniversary of the UN Declaration of Human Rights in December 1979. Still perilous times. And I will quote, "On this particular day, let us then rededicate ourselves to the cause of justice and human rights, more particularly here in our troubled country. Be not silent, nor afraid, nor compromising in attitude." May these words resonate in our souls today. May we take up her call. May our aspirations one day be matched by reality. Thank you very much.
On CNN Philippines, that was embattled Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno speaking at a forum at the St. Scholastica's College in Manila. The forum is entitled In Defense of Women, Ethical Governance and Sovereignty. And this is in line with tomorrow's celebration of International Women's Day. But she is speaking also about democracy and rule of law a day before the House Justice Committee is set to vote if there is probable cause to impeach her. The Chief Justice said the nation should strengthen and not weaken institutions. She says there is a way to ensure transparency and accountability. She says do it right. Also, this comes a day after the Supreme Court en banc gave Sereno 10 days to submit her comment on the quo warranto petition to void her appointment as Chief Justice. Solicitor General Jose Calida asked the High Court to declare void the appointment of Sereno as Chief Justice, in effect ousting her. And Associate Justice Marvic Leonian dissented in this decision, saying that in his opinion, the petition should be dismissed outright. A quo warranto is a legal proceeding where an individual's right to hold office is challenged. Meanwhile, Sereno's camp reiterated that Chief Justice can only be removed from office through impeachment under the Constitution. There is a forum right after that speech by Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno. Let's listen in.
And I think this is such a wonderful experience for them, and it will always remain an inspiration in their own journey of empowerment. So I would like to thank you very much, and I would like to wish you all a good day. Thank you very much.
You're seeing live pictures from the forum at the St. Scholastica's College. Embattled Chief Justice Maria Lourdes Sereno there speaking earlier, and she talked about truth, justice, and the government, which she says has the duty to embody the highest level of nobility, wisdom, and righteousness in the Filipino. She also says, she said earlier, and I quote, "You are witnesses to the injustices happening around us." She says the current state of the nation is where perceived enemies of the dominant order are considered fair game for harassment, intimidation, and persecution. And she said actions that violate our Constitution harm our future. Meanwhile, the House Justice Committee is expected to vote tomorrow if there is probable cause to impeach Chief Justice Sereno. Balitaan is coming your way at noon. Stay tuned to